Yo, what's going on, guys?
We
Welcome to
should,
the Trying to Get Jack podcast.
yeah, we should
What
do
were
more
you
like
gonna say?
energetic podcast intro. Yeah? What's,
Energy?
yeah. What's up, everybody? How's everybody doing? Who's getting
Don't
jacked
do
up?
that.
No, that's sus. Okay.
That is not us.
As the business mentorship told me, you gotta have more energy, too monotone.
I
But
need like three energy drinks for that. I'll start yelling at everyone.
it just wouldn't sound authentic like the people say, you know?
But we're the most like chill guys here.
Yeah, we're pretty chill. Okay.
Speaking of chill, I
Yeah.
think we're gonna talk about some things that don't make us chill, especially
Yeah.
like mistakes people make when they're bulking. I'm sure we both made both of these mistakes before.
Well, 100%.
Like
100%.
I think I made every mistake on this list
Yeah.
multiple times,
All the time.
right? Now
Yeah.
guys come to me, they're like, yo, I'm bulking, I'm doing this. I'm like, fuck, bro, why are you doing that?
Yeah. 5,000%. It's one of those things where like this is if someone listens to anything and just watches this podcast and doesn't make these mistakes, they'll probably get the best physique long term, right? Because this is literally like this is where the physiques are built, or not built at all, and we just stay in the same loop of looking the same constantly, right? Just
100%.
doing this part right here, right? It was just like the bulking portion and not making these specific mistakes will go the longest way in getting a jacked physique, right? Fucking go in circles. And I think number one thing would be honesty, and this is gonna solve a lot of things because a lot of people like don't bulk properly just because they're like, I'm just gonna get too fat. But if you do it in the right fashion, you don't make this big mistake of like just having so many calories. Like I know before, like every time I bulk, I'm like, okay, yo, I just gotta eat a bunch of food, everything that's in the house, dal, roti, pizza on the weekends, burritos, everything. I'm like, yo, more food means I'm just gonna put on a bunch of more muscle, right? So having like a massive surplus and not really tracking calories because I'm like, yo, I'm just bulking. I'm just gonna eat a lot of food and lift heavy stuff, which kind of works to an extent per se, but if you have, I don't want to pull the genetics card here, but if you have some sort of brown genetics, right? Or even brown, I think it's more the brown foods, right? If you had
Okay.
like,
Okay.
if you ate like white people food, like chicken, steak, chicken, rice, whatever, all the time, like they eat that normally, right? Like sweet potatoes and shit. I think, I don't
If you
know.
had like fucking watermelon and fried chicken every day, you'd be jacked. Absolutely jacked. I think.
I think so too.
I,
Who are you referencing that to, bro?
I don't
That was
know, bro.
that was an indirect.
Certain subset of people.
Yeah.
But yo, I remember in high school, I think I was 15, 14 or 15. I just lost a bunch of weight because I was a fat kid, right?
Okay.
So I lost all this weight. I was like sick, bro. Time to bulk. And I remember I made like this big like 1,500 calorie smoothie. And
Oh,
I'd be
jeez.
drinking that every single day. I would eat whatever. I would just like eat to failure, right? And as a fat kid, yo, that's very easy for me to do. I could just plow down food, no problem,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I think I went down from probably like 170 down to like 135.
Oh my
And
God.
then I think I went all the way back up to 170 in like 5 months. And the fuck
Jeez.
part was like I lost the weight again in high school. I did that
Jeez.
again when I went to university. I was like, yo, I'm gonna bulk. I remember going to university first year, living on res. I got the meal plan card, right? The food, you just load
Yeah,
of
me
food.
too. Yeah.
Bro, I went nuts. I go to the cafeteria.
Yeah.
All my friends are sitting there with food and stuff. I go to the thing. I just pile on my plate. My plate was like four times the size of everyone else's. I'm
Yeah.
like, they're like, they look at me like, what the fuck? I'm like, yo, I'm bulking. But I got fat again every single time.
Bulking, bro. Every excuse. I'm bulking. I'm bulking. It's one of those things where like it kind of makes sense logically if you think about it. Like, oh, I'm gonna eat more food, right? And I'm gonna go to the gym, and then I'm gonna just put on a bunch of muscle because my weight's going up. But what ends up happening, like you just mentioned, you just keep getting fat the whole time, right? Because we're not tracking calories. We're not in like a whatever, minor surplus instead of like a fucking 10,000 calorie surplus. It sounds like the way you were doing it. I had the same thing, bro. University, I had meal plan, but I'm not boring. Where like even though when I had the meal plan, I should just get Subway every day.
Mm,
And I should just double patty that shit, right?
mm,
Because I'm like bulking. And then I used to get extra sauce on it, like the honey mustard and the whatever burrito sauce, not burrito sauce, whatever sauce they had, Chipotle. Uh,
okay.
and I was like, okay, I'm bulking, so I'm just gonna eat double the food I was eating. And I just kept gaining weight. I'm like, okay, sick. I'm putting on size, but it ends up just being a bunch of fat. So long story short, biggest mistake is eating too many calories, right? Maybe eat a little bit less And couple metrics to track like how much to eat maybe is like start with maybe like 150, 200 calorie surplus on top of where your maintenance looks like, and maybe aim for like zero point 0.5 to like 1.5-ish
One
pounds
pound.
maybe. Maybe 1 pound, yeah,
I'd say
1.5 would be
one
a little
pound a
extreme,
week. Yeah.
right? You can go a little bit higher if you're like a slow gainer, so you can get aggressive with it maybe. But if you're like, kind of decent size already, you're not like ripped, you're not shredded, but you have to put on size. Like maybe you're in like the skinny fat situation, like a lot of guys you work with. I'd say, okay, maybe go on a slight surplus, so we don't like amplify the fat portion, but we start, amplifying the not so skinny and make it unskinny by putting on some muscle, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah,
I think
that's number one.
making sure to track your body weight instead of just the calories itself.
Yeah,
Because you could just be eating 2,500 calories. On paper, it could be a 100 calorie or 250 calorie surplus. But if your weight's going up over a pound a week every single week, then you're not actually in that surplus, right? So I think one of the biggest things I made a mistake of was not tracking my weight as consistently
yeah,
as when I was cutting. Like when I was cutting, I'd hop on the scale every day. When I was
yeah,
bulking, like I wouldn't hop on it as much. And it's very easy to let that stuff go
yeah,
because you think you're kind of like more relaxed with it. You're like, oh, I'm bulking, I can just do
yeah,
whatever. It's like you said, this is the time when bulking is the time that's going to give you the physique that you want. So you still want to pay that same attention to detail. You might be
yeah,
able to have like a couple extra free meals during the week where like you
yeah.
go out, you enjoy yourself or whatever. But it's like for the most part, you still want to be in that slight calorie surplus where your weight's not going up too much. And I think that's the biggest mistake that most guys make.
Yeah. And like, bro, like I know for a fact, a lot of people, especially like, the guys we kind of work with, it's like they're like, oh bro, but like, it's not that serious. I just want to eat whatever I want. Like it's not, I'm bulking, right? I can eat whatever I want. That's the mentality we kind of go with. But we don't think like long term speaking, you're just gonna waste a bunch of time always cutting because you're putting so much fat on. When in reality, you could be spending so much more time like putting on muscle, right? If you just like, paid a little bit more due diligence during the week and maybe had like one weekend. And we kind of already touched on this. And I think this is probably the second biggest mistake you were talking about. Is like just having the free for all of like, oh, I can just eat whatever I want now because I'm
Hmm.
bulking, right? Picking
Hmm.
whatever foods I want, Laziz every day, right? If you had the option, you probably rip that every day.
Probably rip that
Uh,
every day.
yeah,
Yeah.
but like having and like people don't see the other side of it where like if you have those foods and even if like you're feeling like okay like I'm not gaining weight too fast, I'm just gonna go more and more processed foods. There's other health things happening, right? Which can be impacting your gym performance, which again impacts the physique, right? And this way you end up hitting your calories so easily that you're like, oh, maybe I need to eat more because I'm still hungry. Because these processed foods, fast foods, you leave after you finish them, you're still kind of hungry because they have like some
Yeah.
shit, right?
Yeah.
So like, yeah, I'm sure you have better experience with like choosing not the best foods at times. But yeah,
100%. I think like a lot of times when guys are like bulking, they're like, yo, I'm gonna just eat whatever. I'll go to McDonald's after the workout. I'll go to like whatever is beside and I'll
yeah,
just grab food. And it's
yeah,
like, bro, if you actually want to maximize your training, not even just your training, but the way you feel when it comes to energy levels, when it comes to like being focused, when it comes to the quality of your life, your
yeah,
digestion, all those things, choosing like having vegetables at every meal is still going to be beneficial, even if you're bulking, right? Making
yeah,
sure you're getting your micronutrients in. And that's just going to feed into you training better, you feeling better, you having more energy. A lot of people like, yo, when I bulk, I feel sluggish. Well, if you're eating a lot of processed foods, you're gonna feel like shit regardless. Even if you're cutting, you're probably gonna feel worse, right? So making sure like 90% of your meals are still like whole food meals, stuff you're making at home, single ingredient foods, like that's gonna go a long way for you to ensure you're putting on quality tissue and not just fat like we talked about. So second mistake, like don't just eat shitty foods just because. Make sure it's like quality foods that you're eating 90% of the time, right? Still treat it
yeah,
like
yeah.
you want the healthy foods in you because at the end of the day, health is wealth.
Yeah, and like I think Dasha touched on this on a couple podcasts ago about digestion, right? If your digestion is all screwed up, you're not absorbing the nutrients. So even if you're hitting like say whatever surplus and you have protein intake, everything in there, but you're not absorbing it, your training performance is going to get impacted. You're not going to get the output in the gym that you want. And if you want to change your physique, it's going to be sculpted in the gym. So if that's not actually good, technically you're wasting your time in a surplus because digestion isn't
Hmm.
good, process isn't good. So like again, you're just putting unnecessary fat on, right? So still like easy way when someone cuts bulk, say, yo, eat the same foods. There's a little bit more of the other foods, and you might have to maybe spread the meals out a little bit, but like that's pretty much it. You don't change massive things, right? Eating the same amount, maybe the same foods, just a little bit more, right?
Hmm.
So that's the
Hmm.
second big mistake, right? Don't eat processed foods. So too many calories, too much processed foods, excuses, not being as disciplined, right? And that's what it comes down to. And the third big point, I think this is, I've probably done this 50 times. You've probably done it a couple of times too, 100 times. Not bulking long enough, right? And I tell people stories all the time. I'm like, the reason such a big believer of like just long-term surplus and maybe mini cuts along the way is because literally like I did a competition back 2017 where I went from like whatever 196, 195 to like 137 because I was like I just want a six pack. I want to get ripped, right? And at that point I was lifting for already for like 3, 4 years. So I was like, okay, cool. Like, now when I cut down, I'll just be so jacked. And when I cut down, I just look skinny. Yes, I had some cuts and like whatever because I was just so low body fat. But I was 137, 138 pounds at 5'8". It was not like the best feeling look, right? Or it didn't even look that full and nice for that physique look that we crave, right? So a lot of us were chasing that lean look, but we just keep cutting and we have not spent long enough time to put on muscle, right? So, and when I say long enough, I don't even mean long enough like at one spurt like bunch of spurts of long-term bulking, right? So like
Hmm.
I would say like maybe choose 6 months at a time and then maybe do like a little maintenance or a mini cut, whatever your phase is. And that way your mind gets motivated too, because that's different things to look forward to. It's not just like in a rut focusing on one thing. And then maybe another 6 months, another 6 months. And this comes down to the first point. If you just keep getting too fat, you're not gonna
100%.
you're not gonna be able to do mini cuts because like you actually gotta do a health like full cut because you're not healthy anymore. You just have a bunch of fat on you,
Like when
right?
you're bulking, you don't want to choose a weight goal. I don't think that's the best way to go about it.
Yes,
It's
I
more
do.
about, like you said, having that timeline goal where it's like, yo, I'm a
Yeah,
bulk for this amount of time. Because if you just set a weight goal, especially for the guys who are cutting down and then bulking again, it's not a very hard process for you to eat a lot of food and gain that weight back,
for sure.
right? Like if I want to gain 20 pounds in the next month, I could probably do it. Is that going to be feasible for me in terms of building muscle? Absolutely not, because
Yeah,
timeline horizon for that change to happen isn't big enough,
yeah,
right? Because I think we've talked about it so many times is that muscle building is a very slow process.
yeah,
And just by you increasing that food isn't going to make that any faster. So like
yeah,
you said, having like a 6, 8, 12-month phase where you're consistently in a surplus,
yeah,
that's going to be a lot better for you because I don't know if I've heard this somewhere, but it's like you obviously want to spend more time than you're bulking, but that ratio should be like 2 to 3, sorry, 2 to 1 of
yeah,
you bulking to cutting, or even
yeah,
more than that, right? Like
yeah,
maybe it's 3 to 1
yeah,
where you're spending time in this phase. And if you're making the two mistakes that we talked about before,
yeah,
it's gonna be very easy to not bulk long enough because, like you said, you just have to cut it short, go back into a deficit, and
yeah,
that's not a prime situation for your body to build muscle in
yeah,
because it doesn't,
100%.
right? So the more you can drag out the bulk in terms of the duration of it,
Yeah,
instead of just like, let me get to this weight goal.
yeah,
Because a lot of people are like, oh, I'm not bulking long enough. Maybe that just means I have to gain more weight. It's like, no, you
yeah.
don't necessarily have to gain more weight. You just have to make sure that weight that you're gaining happens over a longer period of time.
Yeah. No, it's true. Like honestly, this I think a big mindset thing where in our mind we're constantly chasing like, oh, I want to lose body fat, body fat, body fat, but we don't think about like all the benefits that come with being in a slight surplus. You feel stronger, you should feel more energized, you feel like a beast in the gym, you got fucking juicy pumps, you get sick sleep, you wake up fresh, right? You're not just constantly lethargic and low in energy and constantly having like these self-image, body image things because you're like, yo, I'm working on a phase where I'm getting strong and healthy, right?
Hmm.
And if you
Hmm.
view it from that side, I think it changes a lot. And like, I don't work with too many female clients, but this seems to be something massive in the female. I'm sure you have a couple of female clients too, where it's like, hey, I know you want to lose weight, but you eating 1,200 calories is not gonna
It's not
give you
it.
the health you want, right? And it's like you're not gonna feel strong, you're not gonna feel energized, right? And the same thing with guys. I think one of the biggest things I've learned from like James Mack and even Bax, a lot of us under eat like crazy. Like we think more calories, more food is gonna make us fat right away, right? But a lot of us can like eat way more than we think. And again, it has to be aligned with like other stuff, like making sure you're still moving and you're still eating whole foods and your training performance is still improving, things like that. But a lot of us can eat more if we ate the right foods, right? A lot of us just get fat because we don't make the right
Hmm.
food choices. You
Hmm.
know what I'm saying? Like I've realized this on this cut, whatever I'm doing right now is like on my training days, I'm eating 3,000 calories, bro, 400 grams of carbs, and I'm on a
Hmm.
cut, right?
Hmm.
Never in my life I would have ate these many calories, even in like a surplus, because I'm like, I'll just get fat. I'm eating on a cut,
Hmm.
you know what I'm saying? Because all my meals is straight whole foods, like chicken and rice, oatmeal, chicken and rice, oatmeal, Greek yogurt, like it's just straight foods like that. So
Yeah,
if you long enough bulk in that disciplined fashion, that's where the physique is like, okay, yo, this is what you wanted, eh? And then
for
once you
sure.
see that once, that's when you're like, okay, shit, like this shit works. A lot of us don't go through the effort 'cause like, oh, damn, it's gonna be so much effort. I gotta be so disciplined, whatever it is. But if you look like 5 years down the line, if you just get dialed in for that 6 to 12 months, you're gonna thank yourself because you're gonna be like, oh, damn, okay, that's what I wanted to experience finally. And then you don't want to get undialed in. You want to keep going back on it. Maybe take a month
Mhm.
off here and there. That's fine. But like you want to stay dialed in because it just feels nice, you know?
Yeah, I
So
think that's the biggest thing. That's the difference between cutting and bulking. It's
yeah,
like if you're cutting, you could probably lose a pound, 2 pounds a week, and it's probably good that the scale goes down a little bit faster,
for
maybe
sure.
at the beginning, right? Whereas
Yeah,
with bulking, it's like you can't have that same attachment to the scale going up
yeah,
because that's not the thing that dictates whether you're building muscle or not. It's
I agree.
your training performance, you getting stronger in the gym, but
Pictures.
also making sure pictures, all that sort of stuff,
Yeah,
measurements. Let's make sure you're not gaining weight that fast because if you're not, that's actually a better position for you to
that's a
be in
good thing. Yeah,
than you being up 5 pounds, but your bench press only goes up 5 pounds.
yeah.
Right? That's
Because like,
horrible.
yeah, because perspective wise, if you think about it, like, say like I gained 6 pounds this month, and I've been
Mhm.
training for 10 years. How much
Mhm.
of the 6 pounds is gonna be muscle?
Barely anything, right? Maybe like
Maybe
a
like
quarter of a pound, half a pound, if that.
maybe like 100 grams, bro. Right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm just gonna put on 5 pounds of unnecessary fat on, and I gotta spend like in the future 2 to 3 weeks cutting that fat. If I do that every month for 6 months, now I'm spending myself for like a whole cut for like a whole year, wasting a whole
Hmm.
year, right? So waste so much time of like, yo, just like I'm putting unnecessary fat on. But I think the main mistake we're talking about here now, bulking long enough in a proper way, right? We can bulk unintentionally with shittier foods, but then you don't get the look that you want, right?
Exactly.
But yeah, okay. What's another? I think I had a note here.
Mistake number four, like doing intermittent fasting or just eating 2 to 3 big meals, eating
Yeah,
whatever you want,
yeah,
whenever you want, sorry, when
yeah,
you're
yeah, yeah,
bulking.
yeah,
Especially if you're someone that's a hard gainer,
yeah,
right? You probably want to space those meals out a lot more
yeah,
because you're not going to feel like so full to the point where you can't eat your next one.
yeah,
And I think the bigger caveat to this is like if you're bulking, the thing that's going to cause your physique to grow is your training. So you want to make sure your nutrition is reflected around giving you the best training experience possible. So having that pre-workout meal properly, having that post-workout meal properly, having those meals around your training to be a little bit more carb heavy, a little bit more satiating per se. So you go in
yeah,
with the good training performance because that's what's going to drive the needle,
yeah,
right? So if you're just
100%.
having like a big meal at the end of the day and that's like 3,000 calories,
Yeah,
sure, you're in a surplus,
yeah,
but if you train like in the middle of the day, you're not really fed for that.
for
Your
sure.
body isn't really like primed to go,
Right.
if you want to
Yeah,
call it that,
yeah.
right?
And it's one of those things like we know, like even like we don't have to sit here and tell you like, okay, you're gonna eat a little bit more carbs before your training and maybe eat some food that you digest well. Like we know inherently too, right? If you're gonna go put on
Hmm.
muscle, like yo, this is like a wild example, but like bodybuilders, they inject insulin into their system to get jacked, to get bigger.
Hmm.
But when
Hmm.
you have carbs, also spikes your insulin, right? So it's one of the most anabolic things you can do for yourself is to have more carbs around training, right? And if you know that in the back of your mind and you still don't do it, that's totally up to you. That's fine. Some people feel bettered, fasted, whatever. But just know you might be missing out on that 0.15% gain, whatever it is. And it being a tedious and a slow process as it is, if you're missing out on that 1%, maybe just cutting your gains short a little bit, right? So yeah, like meal timing becomes more important. Easy way to structure might be like, we talked about this with Dasha as well, but like put more carbs and protein before workout, 90 to 120 minutes. And then during workout, you can even do some carbs if you wanted to, especially in a surplus, like carbolin, like 20, 25 grams, maybe with some EAs or like salt and stuff. And then post workout, you can do another big carb and protein meal. And you don't even have to do that much protein post and pre workout, honestly, if you have a good amount of carbs with you. Because carbs are going to be something that's going to be helping you recover, right? And you
Hmm.
don't need as much protein around that window, right? So load up on the carbs around meal timing, especially if you're a hard gainer. A lot of us go, my metabolism's so fast, bro. I just can't gain weight. It's like, yo, utilize that workout window, right? That's the time your body's probably primed for food. Like every time you have like a muscle contraction, like your body's like asking for carbs, right? So post workout, take advantage of that window. That's when you can probably eat a bunch more food, right? So time your meals a little bit better. Get disciplined with it and don't skip meals, especially when a surplus. Even if you feel fine, that's cool. But if you're trying to get the most out of your training and trying to get the physique you want to do the things little things that you can do, right? Because that's what takes
Hmm.
your physique to the next level. Only if you want to do that, right? But yeah, meal timing, big one.
Big key.
Fifth,
Last mistake.
yeah. What's the last
Fifth
mistake?
mistake.
Yeah,
Yo, I've made this mistake so many fucking times. Oh my goodness. I'll be like, yo,
yeah,
I'm bulking,
yeah,
not consistent training. Or it's like when I go into a gym, I'm not really pushing as hard as I know I should. Or like you're not pushing to failure. You're
yeah,
not trying to beat those numbers from last time. You're not
yeah.
even tracking numbers. You're like, yo, I'm bulking. I could just do whatever I want at gym, right?
That's it.
It's like,
That's it.
nah, that is not it, bro. That's not what's gonna
Yeah,
grow your physique at all, right? Like if anything, when you're bulking, you should be pushing those workouts a billion times harder. For the reason
100%.
we mentioned before, you have more energy, right? That's what you're
Yeah,
using the energy for. So you should be like emptying the gas tank at the gym every single day, like balls to the wall,
yeah,
push to failure on every set, beat your numbers from last week. And it
yeah,
should feel good to do that because you had all that extra energy to
yeah.
push. And
100%.
that's a big thing.
Be way more disciplined with your training, right? Training intensity matters like way more. Yes, in cut, you have to be more mindful, like you're not just dropping strength performance constantly. But like in a bulk, like you want to make sure your performance is improving, whether it's like not even strength or whatever, but like your control is getting better, your contractions are getting better, your pumps are getting better, range of motion is getting better. You're seeing a visual change in certain areas, like you're tracking these things because it can easily get out of hand where you just put on fat. Like I know for a fact, and like I've done this so many times. That's what I'm saying. It like you can easily be like, okay, yo, like first couple weeks, month, 2 months, you're still kind of lean, right? So you're putting on, a little bit of weight, but you're like, oh, I feel fucking jacked, bro. Everything is feeling full. But then slowly, slowly, that surplus, adds up, and you start eating a little bit out here, a little bit out here, and then you start putting on more and more weight. Then you start feeling that sluggish feeling. Then the workout intensity starts to go downhill a little bit, right? That's why
Hmm.
having like a set timeline as well for like what we were talking about, whatever 20, 24 weeks, it gives you like another goal or direction. Be like in these 20 weeks, I'm going to be putting on whatever muscle. And if it's like a weight goal, don't really be attached to that, but have a direction you want to head in, right? If you've never hit a weight goal, maybe aim for it. That's like 0.5 pounds a week, but like have that direction. But keep training intensity top of mind. Anytime performance starts to like get hindered a little bit, either like look at how your recovery looks like. That might be a time where you do add a little bit more calories, right? Or look at your sleep, whatever it is. Maybe you do throw in an intra workout then if you're not using one, right? But training performance is the thing that's going to drive the physique, right? That's where the physique is actually going to be sculpted and change. So just make sure, like, don't make that mistake of just sluggish training, getting a pump, just feeling juicy, and just doing like just hardcore shit. And this is another thing actually, where like sometimes in a bulk you can go inverse where like every session you're just like, I'm just gonna fucking send it. And you just do like 5 sets, 4 sets, every exercise, you just go ham, you destroy your body, right? And you're just building this massive hole of like recovery that like you never actually progress on any lifts. You'll have like
Hmm.
2, 3 weeks where you send it, and third, fourth week, you're like, oh, I don't feel that good, and you kind of go downhill a little bit, and then you're just constantly going in the circle of not really progressing on anything. So just make sure you still do like moderate volume. You're not just fucking going crazy but you're progressing on it somehow, right?
Yeah. One of the big things I have with pretty much every one of my client that does the bulk is like we'll pick like some movements that you want to really get strong at.
There you
And
go.
those are like the benchmark movements, right? So
Love
like
it.
for a lot of guys, it's bench press. For some guys, it's dips or whatever it is. It's like,
Yeah,
okay, we're bulking, we're doing this movement since the start of the block. By the end of this, bro, we should have put on 20 pounds on your bench press or 30 pounds on your bench press or whatever that number is. Pick a movement and consistently get stronger at that over time, whether that's more reps, whether that's more sets, whether that's better control, more weight. Typically, if you're gaining weight, you should be gaining weight on those movements as well over a period of time, right?
yeah,
And it's like you having the sort of, okay, I'm bulking. These are sort of my proxies in training that I need to be hitting. It's like these are the
yeah,
KPIs I need to make sure I'm improving to make
yeah,
sure the bulk is still working. Because if we're up 5 pounds, and like we said, your bench press isn't going up. or your chest press isn't going up, or whatever it is, your dumbbell press isn't going up. It's like, yo, is the bulk really working? Right? Am I really putting that energy to good use?
Yeah.
And then at that point, then you have to reevaluate what you're doing, right? Recovery, how much you're eating, like all the stuff you talked about. But having some sort of movement or a few movements, whether that's like a upper body movement and a lower body movement, or picking something that you really like and making sure that gets better over the course of your bulk
Yeah.
is a great way to stay motivated too. Because you know when you have to go into that session, it's like I gotta beat my PR on this from last week because I have more energy. Otherwise, I'm just wasting my time.
100%. 100%. And bro, like sometimes people get in this mindset of like, oh, I don't chase numbers, whatever it is. But it's like, yo, we're not at that level yet. Like we're not even at that level. We're like, unless you're a top level bodybuilder, we're just like strong as fuck, like lifting 4 plates each side for everything. It's like, yo, that person probably shouldn't chase weights anymore. You're gonna fry the joints. We can focus more
Mhm.
on the contraction. But we can chase weights and reps a little bit, man. Like we have a long, massive ceiling of strength, right? So why not, reach that? And obviously it takes a minute, but working towards something will keep you, like you said, excited. Because when you're in a weight loss thing, you can see the weight go down. You can see visual changes. When it comes to muscle, like you don't see that many changes too quick.
Mm-mm.
So having those like numbers to look at, be like, okay, objectively, I'm making progress. Wicked. That means I'm putting the deposits in. Gains are going to be made, right? So, y-
100%.
yeah, man, those are top 5 mistakes you don't want to make if you want to get fucking jacked. Eh?
Sick. I was
Okay.
sick.
Sick.
You guys
Summary.
got
What's the summary?
summary? Okay, slight surplus. Don't get
Yeah.
too fat.
Don't
Don't
get
just
too
eat
rowdy.
whatever. Don't just eat whatever. I think we said a good rate of weight gain is around 0.5 to 1 pound per week.
Yep.
Number two, quality of foods, making sure you're eating good single ingredient, high quality foods. Save the processed foods for maybe 10% of the time, 5%
Yeah.
of the time. But most of your food should be good, high quality foods.
Good digestion
Number
foods.
three,
Yeah.
good digestion foods. And then number three, making sure you're bulking for a long enough period of time, not just a particular weight goal that you're trying to get to. Make sure it's at least 6, 8, 12 months, a significant duration of your time.
Yep.
It's more than the time you're spending cutting because that's what's going to build your physique. Number four, making sure your meal timing is on point. Spread out those meals if you're having a harder time eating two really, really big meals. Having those meals around training is going to be really, really important. Making sure the carbs around that time is super, super key. Throwing carbs between during your workout is also a way to push that needle a little bit. And
Yep.
then number five, making sure training performance is dialed in, making sure you're crushing it every time. You're hitting PRs in some sort of metric every single time you're going in. Um, and not half-assing your training. That's gonna be the big thing as you're
Yeah.
going at it.
Get as excited for like a bulk and be disciplined with it as you do for cuts, and you're actually get juicy.
You're
Bless.
golden.
Okay, guys, so quick little thing. If the podcast does help, please just share with one person. It goes a long way. And if it doesn't help, give us some feedback. How can we help better? Or actually don't say anything. It's fine. But whatever it is, share with somebody. Or give us like any feedback we can improve on or anything else you guys want to see, right? So please share. Goes a long way. And yeah, make sure you get jacked.
Catch you guys in
Bless.
the next one.
Bye bye. Sick.